What if the next great football mastermind wasn't a genius at all, but a prisoner of his own idea? What if the meteoric rise, the trophies, the headlines were all built on a system so rigid it couldn't survive the chaos of the Premier League? Tonight, we dive into the story of a coach who went from miracle worker to lightning rod, the manager who transformed Sporting into champions, then walked into Manchester United and watched everything unravel. This is the rise and fall, so far, of Ruben Amorim. And by the end, you'll know exactly why he soared, exactly why he crashed, and whether he can still change his fate. Imagine a young coach walking into a dressing room in Portugal's lower leagues. No glittering CV, no big-name aura, just a clear idea. Control space, control transitions, control the game. He doesn't have the badges yet, literally, but he has conviction. He takes over a third-division club, and after a rough start, he flips the board. 3 at the back, wing-backs tearing up the flanks, midfielders stacked to create and to choke the counter. It's not romantic football, it's ruthless geometry. He learns fast, he learns what works for his players, and he learns that the right structure can make average players look good and good players look unstoppable. But the system comes with a cost. It asks for discipline, repetition, non-negotiables. To thrive inside it, everyone must see the game the same way. When that alignment happens, magic follows. When it doesn't, the whole machine stutters. Now zoom forward, a move to Braga. A young coach leaves the B team and steps into a job that chews people up. He doesn't blink. He brings the same clear images onto the training pitch. Compactness in the first phase. Aggression when the press triggers. The moment the opponent's fullback receives with a closed body shape, go. The moment the 6 is isolated, jump. He lifts a trophy. He breaks a hoodoo at a giant stadium. The players talk, quietly at first, about how every drill makes sense, how the structure elevates them, how this coach seems to have an answer before the question's even asked. And then, Sporting calls. The price tag is enormous for a manager, but Sporting doesn't buy a name, they buy a blueprint. They buy the belief that a system can rebuild identity. He walks into a club starving for clarity. He brings it in buckets. Training sessions become laboratories. Every day has a purpose. Forwards rehearse the same diagonal runs until they feel automatic. Centre-backs get used to carrying the ball into midfield and splitting lines, not just clearing their lines. Wing-backs live on an island between bravery and caution, knowing one wrong decision exposes the back three. The table doesn't lie. Sporting climb, then soar. A title after nearly 2 decades of waiting. A cup, a super cup. They don't just win, they convince. They convince players, they convince fans, and most tellingly, they convince opponents, who realise, painfully, that this team can hurt you with or without the ball. But even in the glow of silverware, the system demands sacrifices. Star players leave. Portugal's football food chain is ruthless. And Sporting's sell. Each departure is a test of the system's promise. Can the structure outlast the star? For a while, the answer is yes. The academy flows into the first team. New signings plug into the scheme. The core principles stay intact. Press together, retreat together, show the opponent into the traps, create superiority wide, then exploit the space they leave inside. Sporting keep competing, keep punching above their financial weight. The belief crystallizes into a brand. Ruben Amorim, 3 at the back, wing-backs as weapons, the team as a machine. And then, England, a stadium heavy with history, expectations that move like fog, creeping into every corner of the training ground. Manchester United have been searching for an identity since the last great architect left. They gaze across Europe and see this young coach with his clear pictures and measurable success. They see a system and they think, maybe that's our new spine. He arrives under the worst condition for a purist: chaos. No pre-season with his group at first. A squad built by different hands for different ideas. Players who excel in space asked to play between lines. Defenders comfortable in a 4 asked to cover wider distances and win different duels. Wing-backs? United haven't really had that profile in years. Still, He imposes the structure, because the structure is what took him here. It's what he trusts when the world spins fast. At first, there are mitigating factors. He's not backed enough. He plays midweek, weekend, midweek, with little time to rebuild the brains of a team. He believes in repetition, but the schedule wants improvisation. Results wobble. People say, judge him when he has a real window, when he has a real preseason, when he has the chance to bring in his profiles. That chance comes. Investment arrives. Training grounds grow loud in July, then quiet with concentration as days stack on days. The drills are crisp. The messaging is clear. Space, structure, triggers, patterns. The season starts and, on paper, everything needed to judge the experiment is in place. 1 game a week for long stretches. Time to prepare. Time to recover. Time to teach. Then football does what football does. It exposes the gap between theory and reality. The back three looks like a net full of holes when the distances aren't perfect. In Portugal, those distances were perfect, because the group moved as one. In England, the press is half a second late. The compactness flickers. Rivals see fault lines. Coaches study the film and draw a map. Bait the wing-back high, punch the ball behind him, drag a centre-back wide, then flood the channel at the far post, or split the double pivot with a false 9, pin the outside centre-backs with pace, and suddenly the 6-yard box looks unguarded. The system is still the same, the league is not. What about the ball? In Portugal, Amorim's teams built calmly, drawing out the press, then striking quickly through well-rehearsed lanes. At United, the first pass is nervous, the second pass is safe, the third pass is nowhere. Forwards who once cut across centre-backs and finished low now check 2 feet, then play back. The rhythm is broken. The patterns he drilled at Alcochete don't transfer when the pieces don't fit. This is where a manager faces his hardest choice. Do you bend your idea to the squad, or do you bend the squad to your idea? Amorim has always known his answer. The system is the system, the idea is the idea. He built a career on that stubbornness. It gave him trophies, it gave him a reputation, it gave him power. But in Manchester, that same stubbornness becomes a charge sheet. Inside the dressing room, standards become headlines. Players who stray from the non-negotiables sit. Big names shrink under the weight of scrutiny. A wide forward who thrives in chaos is told to obey the geometry of the 3-4-2-1. He doesn't. He's sidelined. A young midfielder with the tools to run a game can't find a clear home between the pivot and the pocket. He watches while the team stumbles around him. Supporters ask, if the system can't include our best talents, is it the right system? On the training ground, the drills keep coming. They must, because the way through a storm, in Amorim's philosophy, is the same as the way to the top. Repetition and belief. But belief evaporates with every defeat. Players stop automatically sprinting on the press trigger because the last time they pressed, they were bypassed. The backline stops stepping out because the last time they stepped, space opened behind. A structure that relies on 5 or 6 players making the same decision at the same moment collapses when 2 of them hesitate. The numbers turn ugly, goals dry up, clean sheets become mythical. Cup competitions eject United before the big boys even arrive. The league table stops lying and starts testifying. Opponents leave the pitch explaining out loud how they planned to hurt United and did. We look to play behind the 2 midfielders. We try to pin the outside centre-backs because they don't want to jump. That's not disrespect. That's a scouting report turned into points. So what exactly went wrong? Strip away the noise and you find 3 truths. First, the system gap. Amorim's 3-4-3 family functions when the wingbacks are elite decision-makers. They must sense when to pin high, when to tuck in, when to become fullbacks, when to be wingers. They are not ornaments. They are the hinges of the entire machine. Without the right hinges, the door doesn't open. It falls off. Second, the tempo gap. In Portugal, the build-up sequences could breathe. 1 or 2 extra touches didn't invite a crowd. In the Premier League, those extra touches are punished. You lose the ball not at the edge of the opponent's box, but at the edge of yours. Amorim's teams need the first line to play forward bravely. But bravery looks like naivety when the receiving shapes aren't crisp and the opponents press in waves. Third, the adaptation gap. Great managers don't abandon their identity, they remix it. They fold in a back 4 out of possession without announcing they've changed. They drop a pivot between the centre-backs not to be cute, but to buy more time on the ball. They switch the midfield box into a triangle to protect the centre when opponents split the sixes. If the wing-back profiles don't fit, they create asymmetry. One true full-back on one side, one high and wide outlet on the other. If the forwards can't play with their back to goal, they stretch the line and build down the sides. It's still their idea, it's just adapted to the room. Amorim in this story doesn't do enough of that, or doesn't do it soon enough. The scenes repeat: a tight first half, a sloppy concession, then the chasing. A marginal improvement, a big opponent, another lesson. You look at the touchlines. On one side, a rival coach tweaks on the fly. On the other, Amorim stands by the cone he placed in July. There's another layer, the human one. Success changes expectations. In Lisbon, he spoke the language of the academy, the city, the club's hunger. Players believed not just because the drills worked, but because they felt the culture fit. In Manchester, he inherits a fractured dressing room, a fan base exhausted by false dawns, and an institution where pressure is the permanent climate. The same directness that felt refreshing in Portugal feels icy in England. The same standards that lifted teenagers feel like public verdicts on stars. The margin for error shrinks to nothing. Could this have gone differently? Absolutely. Picture an alternate path. Amorim lands in England and spends the first months building a hybrid. Out of possession, they sit in a 4-2-3-1 with a narrow block to protect the centre and funnel play wide. In possession, the right back tucks in to form a back three, letting the left back bomb forward to create width. The front three narrow to attack the box. The wing overloads happen, but they're safer. The identities blur, but the points arrive. Slowly, he introduces more of his true system as the squad recruits the right wing-back, the right ball-playing centre-back, the right connective 10. The idea survives because it bends. That's the question still staring Amorim in the face. Will he bend now? Because the strengths that made him special haven't vanished. He still sees the game in systems. He still believes in coaching as craft, not just vibes. He still knows how to install habits that raise a ceiling. But the Premier League doesn't respect yesterday's ceiling. It forces you to raise it in real time. Let's talk specifics. The back three can protect itself in England if the pivots protect the lanes. That means the midfield pair can't simply stand side by side. One must screen, the other must jump on a hair trigger. If opponents are finding the pockets behind them, invert the triangle. Drop one of the 10s into a third midfielder off the ball to block the pass into the half space. Make it boring for 10 minutes if you must. Earn the right to structure the game again. If your wingbacks don't give you both sides of the role, rebrand them for a month. One becomes a fullback in a back four when defending. The opposite side becomes a winger in possession. Call it a compromise. I call it survival, because if you keep conceding the same goal, the far post overload after being dragged wide, you have to change the shape of the box you're defending. In the build, add a simple out ball. If teams are trapping you centrally, bounce it long to a channel runner on 2 touches, not 5. You can't code elegance into a team overnight in England. You can code decision trees. If the 6 is marked and the wing-back is pinned, go over them. It's not cowardice, it's control through variation. What about personnel? If a young midfielder has the spatial awareness and the courage to connect phases, you find him a lane. You don't wait for the system to magically make him fit. You adjust the tasks around him. Give him a partner who covers ground behind. Give him the angles he needs in possession. If your star forward resists the discipline of the half-space role, simplify his job. Attack the back post. Attack transition. Attack the first defender. One clear ask beats 5 confused ones. And communication. This might be the most important. An idea communicated as a command creates resistance. The same idea communicated as a pathway creates buy-in. When he was winning in Portugal, Amorim's messages felt like invitations to a shared project. At United, they sometimes sounded like verdicts. The difference is thin, but at the top, thin is everything. Now step back. Is this the end of the story? Football is full of managers who looked doomed before they learned to remix themselves. Think of coaches who started as dogmatists and ended as chameleons. They didn't abandon their philosophy. They made it modular. They kept the DNA, but wrote new code around it. Amorim's choice is the same. modularize or fossilize. If he leans in, this is what the turnaround could look like. United stop conceding the same transition goal. The block gets 5 meters shorter and 10 meters narrower without the ball. The midfield triangle protects the zone in front of the centre-backs. The wing-backs become asymmetrical weapons. One stays, one goes. The 10 on the ball side drops into the half space as a third midfielder when defending, then bursts past the line when they win it. They win a few ugly games. Suddenly, training feels lighter. Players start to trust the triggers again. The system breathes. With the ball, they develop 2 patterns they can run in their sleep. Pattern A: lure the press to the right, switch fast to the left where the high outlet receives on the half turn and attacks the box. Pattern B: bounce it into the striker's feet, lay off to the underlapping midfielder, slip the wing-back in behind. No overthinking. 2 patterns that create 4 shots a game. 4 shots become points when the defense isn't chasing ghosts. None of this requires abandoning the identity. It requires sequencing it. It asks the manager to be the same person he was at his best, a teacher. Because that's what this story is really about. Amorim's rise came from teaching. His fall from asking a new class to master a university course on day 1. If he returns to teaching, patiently, flexibly, relentlessly, he can write a new chapter. So where do we leave it? With a warning and with hope. The warning: systems are beautiful until they become cages. The hope: ideas don't fail. People fail to adapt them. Ruben Amorim is still young. He has already achieved more by his 30s than most coaches do in a lifetime. He built a machine at Sporting that conquered a league and restored pride. That didn't happen by accident. It happened because he could see a game plan other people couldn't. The Premier League asked him a question he didn't answer quickly enough. Can your idea live in a different climate? If he can now say yes, through shapeshifting, through man management, through teaching, then this rough season will become the furnace that forged a better coach. If he can't, the league will move on without him, as it always does. Let's be fair, some problems weren't his fault. Recruitment was uneven, key profiles were missing. The schedule, even with fewer games, creates a strange rhythm that can suffocate momentum. A club still searching for a modern football structure asked him to be the whole structure. But great managers succeed not when the conditions are perfect, but when they aren't. They create clarity in fog. They turn noise into signal. He can do that. He has done that. The next step is to do it here, now, with the squad he has, not the squad he dreams of. Build short-term stability, then layer in the masterpiece. Keep the essence, compactness, coordinated pressing, verticality, while removing the predictability that opponents are feasting on. Protect the spaces that have been bleeding points. Simplify the messages that have been muddied by pressure. Reward the players who carry the idea onto the pitch without fear. And to the fans who have lived this roller coaster, your instinct is right. You don't need slogans. You need signs. Signs that the team can outplay pressure. Signs that they can suffer without collapsing. Signs that when the plan is blocked, there is a second plan that still looks like United. Those signs won't arrive in a press conference. They'll appear in shape, in timing, in the way a centre-back steps and is covered, in the way a winger tracks to the edge of the box at the exact moment a cross is coming. Football is 1,000 tiny choices made together. If Amorim can get those choices in sync, he'll get the rest. So, what the hell happened with Ruben Amorim? Success amplified a great idea. The Premier League magnified its flaws. Stubbornness turned from strength to weakness. But the story isn't finished. The same conviction that built a champion can build a contender if it learns to bend. If you love in-depth stories like this, if you want more tactical deep dives, more manager case studies, more truth behind the noise, make sure you subscribe to Infinite Football right now. Hit that button, join our squad, and never miss the next chapter in the game we can't stop thinking about. And one last thought to leave you with. In football, identity is a compass, not a cage. The best managers don't rip out their compass when the storm hits, they learn to read it better. The question for Ruben Amorim isn't whether his compass works, it's whether he's ready to adjust his route. The next 90 minutes will tell us more than the last 9 months ever could. Stay with us, we'll be watching.